What if the most dangerous place on Earth isn't a war zone, a lawless wasteland, or the depths of the ocean, but the silent, uncharted corridors of your own mind while you sleep? Imagine a world where your deepest secrets, your most guarded vulnerabilities, and your finest ideas aren't safe behind skull and bone, but can be hunted, stolen, and weaponized against you. This isn't just a psychological nightmare. It's a high-stakes corporate reality. Enter Dom Cobb, a master thief of a terrifyingly unique variety. He doesn't steal jewels from vaults or millions from banks. He steals thoughts directly from your subconscious when your defenses are down. But this ultimate power comes with a devastating, soul-crushing cost. Cobb is a fugitive, a man exiled from his country, stripped of his life, and desperately running from the haunting, violent ghost of the woman he loved. When a mysterious, ultra-powerful billionaire offers him the ultimate ticket home, it sounds like a dream come true. The catch? He has to perform the impossible, not steal an idea, but plant one so deeply that the target believes it's their own. If he succeeds, he gets his life back. If he fails, he will be trapped forever in a psychological abyss where time loses all meaning and sanity goes to die. The clock is ticking, the stakes are life and death, and reality itself is about to tear at the seams. The story opens with a stark, haunting image. A battered, exhausted man washed up on a desolate shoreline, staring blankly as two young children build sandcastles in the distance. He is dragged by armed guards into a decaying, traditional Japanese castle, where an ancient, withered old man sits at a table. The old man notices a strange, metallic spinning top among the traveler's belongings. He looks up, his eyes filled with a bizarre, decades-old recognition, and whispers a chilling line about a man he met a lifetime ago in a half-remembered dream. Suddenly, time fractures. We are thrust into the same elegant castle, but it is now pristine, gleaming, and alive with energy. Dom Cobb and his trusted point man, Arthur, are dining with Saito, a powerful corporate tycoon. Cobb is delivering a high-stakes sales pitch, explaining that in the dream state, a person's defenses drop, making their secrets vulnerable to extraction. He offers Saito his specialized services to protect his mind from predatory thieves. But this entire meeting is an elaborate deception. Cobb and Arthur aren't security consultants. They are the thieves, and Saito is their mark. As Cobb attempts to steal confidential corporate files from a safe, the dream begins to violently unravel. The elegant dining room shakes, and a striking, unpredictable woman named Mal appears. She is Cobb's deceased wife, a manifestation of his subconscious guilt, and she is actively sabotaging the mission. Mal alerts Saito to the betrayal. Arthur is captured and brutally tortured, but Cobb maintains his composure, knowing that pain in a dream is merely psychological. However, the stakes escalate when Saito reveals he knew it was a setup all along. The dream collapses entirely as the team wakes up in a second layer, a dingy apartment in a chaotic, developing nation, only to discover that that layer is a dream too. They finally snap awake on a bullet train, realizing the heist has completely failed. Saito's mind was too well protected. Fleeing their corporate employers who demand results, Cobb and Arthur find themselves cornered by Saito on a private helicopter. Instead of executing them, Saito offers a proposition that changes everything. He wants to destroy his chief corporate rival, Maurice Fisher, who is dying. Saito wants Cobb to break into the mind of Fisher's son and heir, Robert, and plant an idea to dissolve his father's empire. This inverse of extraction is called Inception. Arthur insists it's impossible, claiming the human mind always traces an idea back to its origin. But Cobb, driven by an intense hidden desperation, disagrees. He knows Inception is possible because he has done it before. Saito offers the ultimate reward. using his immense political influence to clear Cobb's fabricated murder charges in America, allowing him to return home to his young children. Cobb accepts the lethal gamble. To pull off this psychological miracle, Cobb must assemble an elite team. He travels to Paris to recruit a brilliant architecture student named Ariadne, recommended by his father-in-law, Professor Stephen Miles. Cobb tests Ariadne's spatial reasoning by demanding she design a maze that takes 2 minutes to solve. When she effortlessly draws a circular labyrinthine structure, Cobb knows he has found his architect. He introduces her to the mechanics of shared dreaming, teaching her that dream spaces must be built out of familiar geometry to trick the subconscious into accepting them as reality. As Ariadne explores this new mental frontier, she alters physics, folding the streets of Paris over themselves like a giant cosmic mirror. But her curiosity becomes dangerous. When she begins altering the fabric of Cobb's dream space too drastically, the background projections, the ordinary people populating the dream, turn hostile. They stare at her with predatory eyes, sensing an intruder. Suddenly, Mal emerges from the crowd with terrifying speed and plunges a knife into Ariadne's chest, forcing her to wake up in a cold sweat. Terrified but utterly fascinated, Ariadne demands to know what kind of demon is haunting Cobb's mind. Cobb refuses to answer, keeping his dark secrets locked away, unaware that his unresolved guilt is a ticking time bomb that threatens to destroy them all before the mission even begins. Ariadne returns to the team, driven by a deep desire to understand the architectural boundaries of the human mind and a growing concern for Cobb's stability. Cobb continues building his crew, traveling to Mombasa to recruit Eames, a slick, sharp-tongued master of deception who can alter his physical appearance and persona within a dream to manipulate a target's emotions. Eames explains that Inception requires more than just planting a thought. It requires cultivating a deep, primal emotional narrative. To make Robert Fisher dissolve his father's empire, they must make him believe the decision is an act of independence, a rebellion against his father's crushing legacy, rather than corporate sabotage. In Mombasa, Cobb is relentlessly pursued by corporate assassins from Cobalt, the company he failed in the opening sequence. A frantic, claustrophobic foot chase ensues through narrow, crowded alleys. Just as Cobb is cornered in a dead-end space between two buildings, Saito mysteriously appears in a sleek black sedan, rescuing him at the last possible second. This narrow escape reinforces the absolute urgency of their mission. Next, they recruit Yusuf, a brilliant, soft-spoken chemist who has developed a powerful, specialized sedative. This sedative is essential because the team needs to descend through 3 separate, stable layers of dreaming to plant the idea deeply enough. Yusuf demonstrates the potency of his compound in a dim, underground basement filled with elderly men who sleep for 14 hours a day, treating the dream world as their only true reality. Arthur tests the physics of these deep layers, demonstrating the concept of a Penrose steps, an impossible, infinite staircase that loops into itself. He explains that creating architectural paradoxes allows the team to defend themselves and navigate complex mental terrains. Meanwhile, Ariadne discovers a deeply disturbing secret. While exploring the workshop, she finds Cobb hooked up to a dream machine alone, descending into his own subconscious. She hooks herself in to follow him and discovers a dark, multi-level elevator containing Cobb's deeply repressed memories. Each floor represents a moment of absolute torment. On one floor, she sees a memory of a romantic hotel room dinner. On another, she sees Cobb's children shouting for their father, their faces tragically turned away. On the lowest, most dangerous floor, she finds a prison of grief where a beautiful, terrifying Mal is kept locked away. Mal confronts Ariadne, her words dripping with venomous psychological insight, warning her that Cobb is hiding the truth about what happened to them. Ariadne realizes that Cobb can no longer design the dream landscapes for the mission. If he knows the layout, his volatile subconscious manifestation of mal will inevitably find them, sabotage the heist, and murder the team from the inside out. Ariadne steps up as the primary architect, keeping the complex layouts strictly hidden from Cobb. The team tracks Robert Fisher to a 10-hour transatlantic flight from Sydney to Los Angeles. Saito buys the entire airline to ensure absolute control over the environment. Once airborne, Yusuf slips the heavy sedative into Fisher's drink. As Fisher drifts off, the team hooks themselves into the portable dream machine hidden in a briefcase. They wake up in Layer 1, a dark, perpetually raining, hyper-realistic American metropolis. They instantly kidnap Fisher, forcing him into a taxi. But before they can celebrate, the mission goes horribly wrong. Huge, heavily armed tactical teams materialize out of nowhere, spraying the streets with automatic gunfire. A massive freight train roars down the middle of a city street, smashing through civilian cars and pinning the team down. Amidst the chaotic crossfire, Saito is struck in the chest by a high-caliber bullet, bleeding out rapidly in the backseat of the car. The team manages to escape to an abandoned warehouse, panicked and blindsided. They turn on Cobb, demanding answers. They were promised an easy extraction of an unprotected mind, but Fisher has undergone extensive military-grade subconscious training. His mind is actively fighting back with a private army of lethal projections, and the team is trapped directly in the crosshairs of a psychological war zone. Inside the bleak, dusty warehouse, the tension reaches a fever pitch. Saito is convulsing on the floor, gasping for air as blood pools beneath him. Eames draws his weapon, preparing to shoot Saito to wake him up and end the nightmare. But Cobb frantically stops him, revealing a terrifying hidden truth that Yusuf's heavy sedative has caused. If any of them die in this deep dream state, they won't wake up in reality. Because the sedation is too intense, their consciousness will instead plunge into limbo, unconstructed, infinite subconscious space where their minds will rot for decades, turning them into vegetative shells in the real world. The weight of this revelation hits the team like a physical blow. They are no longer playing a corporate game. They are fighting for their survival. To salvage the mission and keep Saito alive, they must push deeper into Fisher's mind. Eames shifts his strategy, transforming into Peter Browning, Fisher's trusted godfather and longtime legal counsel. He interrogates the battered Fisher, planting a subtle seed of doubt that his dying father actually loved him and had a secret alternative will locked away in a high-security vault. The team piles into a white van driven by Yusuf, escaping Fisher's aggressive tactical projections. They hook themselves back into the machine, descending into Layer 2, a sleek, upscale luxury hotel. Here, Cobb executes a brilliant high-stakes psychological maneuver known as the Mr. Charles Gambit. He approaches Fisher at the hotel bar and breaks the fundamental rule of extraction. He explicitly tells Fisher that he is dreaming and that his mind is currently under attack by corporate thieves. By gaining Fisher's trust as a psychological protector, Cobb convinces him to descend into his own subconscious to discover what his godfather Browning is hiding from him. As they prepare to drop into the third layer, the real-world physical forces acting on Yusuf's van in Layer 1 begin to cause spectacular, mind-bending gravitational anomalies in Layer 2. When the van swerves violently, the entire hotel tilts, sending furniture and people crashing across rooms. Yusuf is relentlessly pursued by a fleet of tactical vehicles on a collapsing bridge. He realizes he cannot hold them off much longer and prepares to initiate the kick, a sudden, synchronized physical drop that forces the inner dreamers to snap back to the previous layer. He drives the van off the side of the bridge, plunging it into slow motion toward the river below. This physical freefall instantly strips Layer 2 of all gravity. Arthur is left behind in the zero-gravity hotel, forced to figure out a way to create a physical kick without gravity, while the rest of the team drops into Layer 3, a snow-covered, heavily fortified military base nestled deep within jagged Alpine mountains. This fortress represents the deepest vault of Fisher's subconscious, containing the emotional core of the Inception. The team faces an uphill battle against a literal army of white camouflaged soldiers defending the base. As Eames and Ariadne provide sniper cover and blast security doors open with explosives, Cobb guides Fisher toward the central vault where his dying father awaits. Success is within their grasp. Fisher stands directly in front of the vault doors, ready to embrace the planted idea. But out of nowhere, Mal appears on a high balcony, aiming a sniper rifle directly at Fisher's heart. Cobb freezes, paralyzed by his lingering love and crippling guilt, unable to pull the trigger on the projection of his dead wife. Before anyone can react, Mal fires a single devastating shot, killing Fisher instantly. The mission collapses into catastrophic failure as Fisher's consciousness plunges into the abyss of limbo, leaving the remaining team members trapped in a dying, freezing wasteland with no exit in sight. With Fisher dead and Saito succumbing to his wounds in the hotel layer, the mission is effectively over. But Ariadne refuses to let Cobb surrender to his grief. She convinces him that there is still one desperate, highly unstable option. They can use the Dream Machine one final time to drop directly into limbo to rescue Fisher's consciousness before his brain completely dies. They descend into a breathtaking, crumbling metropolis of infinite concrete skyscrapers collapsing into an endless, dark ocean. This is the world Cobb and Mal built together over 50 years of shared dreaming when they were trapped in limbo decades ago. Ariadne watches in awe and horror as Cobb walks through the decaying ruins of his past life. They track Mal to a high-rise apartment where she holds Fisher hostage. Here, the devastating truth is finally laid bare. Cobb reveals to Ariadne that he was the one who originally invented Inception, and his first test subject was Mal. Decades ago, Mal became so utterly lost in the beauty of limbo that she refused to leave, choosing to lock her reality-checking token, her spinning top, away in a safe. To save her sanity and force her to wake up, Cobb broke into her safe and spun the top, planting a tiny parasitic idea in her mind that her world wasn't real and that death was the only escape. The Inception worked too well. When they woke up in reality, the toxic idea continued to grow inside Mal's mind like a cancer. She became convinced that their real life, their real children, were all an elaborate dream. To force Cobb to join her, she committed suicide by jumping from a high hotel window, framing him for her murder to eliminate any reason for him to stay behind. Cobb's overwhelming guilt isn't just grief. It is the knowledge that his own brilliant mind inadvertently drove the woman he loved to her death. Mal tries to convince Cobb to stay with her in limbo forever, offering him a simulated life with his children. But Cobb, looking at the hollow projection of his wife, finally finds closure. He confesses his deep love for her, but recognizes that she is just a shadow, a pale imitation of the real woman he lost. With this acceptance, Ariadne pushes Fisher off the high balcony, creating an artificial kick that sends his consciousness hurtling back up to Layer 3. In the Alpine fortress, Fisher snaps back to life. He enters the vault and finds the projection of his dying father. In a profoundly emotional confrontation, the father gasps that he was disappointed not because Robert failed to be him, but because he tried so hard to mimic him. Fisher finds a childhood paper pinwheel inside his father's safe, symbolizing a deep, unexpected emotional validation. The Inception is an absolute success. Fisher decides to dissolve the Empire and become his own man. Simultaneously, the kicks cascade up through the layers. In the zero-gravity hotel, Arthur packs the sleeping team into an elevator and detonates explosives on the cable, creating a synthetic gravitational drop. In Layer 1, Yusuf's van hits the water. The team swims to safety, gasping for air as they wake up in the sinking vehicle. But Cobb stays behind in limbo. He has one final promise to keep. He walks along the desolate shoreline from the film's opening scene, entering Saito's ancient Japanese castle. Saito is now a frail, deeply withered old man, having spent decades in limbo believing the dream is his absolute reality. Cobb, still young, sits across from him and reminds him of their deal. He coaxes Saito's fragile memory back to the surface, reminding him that this world isn't real. Saito looks at the metallic spinning top on the table, a wave of profound realization washing over his aged face. He reaches for a silver revolver, a sharp gasp of air. Cobb snaps his eyes open. He is sitting in his first-class seat on the transatlantic flight, the steady hum of the airplane engine filling the cabin. He looks around the room. Arthur smiles tightly. Eames gives a subtle, knowing nod. Robert Fisher sits across the aisle, looking at peace, completely unaware of the psychological odyssey he just endured. Saito picks up the phone, making a single, high-level call to honor their agreement. The plane lands at LAX. Cobb walks through customs, his heart pounding against his ribs. He passes the security checkpoints unchallenged and finds his father-in-law waiting for him in the bustling arrival terminal. They drive to Cobb's old family home. As he steps through the front door, he sees his two young children playing in the sun-drenched backyard, their voices filled with pure, innocent joy. Cobb pulls his metallic spinning top from his pocket and spins it on the kitchen table to check if he is truly awake. But before it can tip over or keep spinning, his children shout his name. Cobb turns his back on the top, walking out into the yard to scoop his kids into a tight, tearful embrace, completely indifferent to whether the metal object continues to spin. The camera pans down, tracking the silver top as it wobbles slightly, blurring the definitive boundary between a hard-won reality and an eternal, perfect dream.